So the Springboks picked up their first victory of 2025 last weekend, and now this week they head into their two-match series up against the Italians, followed by a match up against Georgia. And in this video, we're going to be trying our best to predict what Rassie Erasmus will be selecting for this upcoming Italian fixture. Now, it is myself and it is Rugbyitch. We are back for what will be your last prediction in quite some time. Tim has been extremely busy with his studying. So welcome back, mate. And yeah, overall, what did you think of that first match up against the Barbars?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. And yeah, of course, this is the last one. So we'll definitely savor the moments. But yeah, in terms of this, I guess, in terms of that match for the Barbars, it didn't really kind of encapsulate me in terms of kind of the Barbars kind of mentality of what we're meant to see. Again, look, the Springboks played, good rugby overall. So from a Springboks perspective, we can definitely be happy kind of with the players that kind of got their chance and opportunity. Yeah, just it wasn't kind of the game that you kind of expect from a Barbars game. But at the end of the day, it's more of a warm-up game, kind of leading into these Italy games, so at least it kind of helps in that perspective.
And it did give Rassie Erasmus the opportunity to blood a few new players, although not quite official Springbok caps as of yet, but a few of them perhaps given the chance in this one up against the Italians. So what we have done is I have gone a little bit more experimental with my Springbok selection, as there are many players who did not feature for that match up against the Barbarians. Yourself, Tim, you've gone a little bit more conservative, but also pretty strong Rassie team.
Yeah, a bit of a mix, I would say. Like, there's some positions where I've gone with the more experience, but then there's some where I've actually gone with a bit more experimental.
And if I know Rassie, it will be completely wrong on both of our parts. And he'll throw together a whole new mixture. But nonetheless, we will jump straight into it. Your front row for this match up against the Italians, who have you gone with for the Springboks?
So yeah, for the front row then, I've gone with the likes of Oxen Shea at number one. I just think you've got to go with him. I mean, he did start the last game against the Barbars, so I think I would expect him to kind of have another opportunity in the number one spot. For number two, this is where I've gone with Bongi. I do believe Bongi will have an opportunity to start this game. I know that he wasn't kind of starting the last game, but I do think he's will be available for this one. And I think just you've got to get him kind of in the swing of things, and what better time to do it now with that first test against the Italians. And then finally, I've actually gone with Niefling Fauché actually to finish off a tight head spot, because I know you came off the bench for the last game, but it's more like you also have to think of like the replacements they have kind of available in this position. There's not as many as you think currently kind of available, because some are injured, but I just thought maybe give him an opportunity within this one. So that's kind of like the one, I guess, experimental one you could say from that front row. But yeah, that's my front row there.
That is a little bit experimental from yourself, Tim. I have got two changes compared to yourself. Number one, I've gone Jan-Hendrik Wessels. Man made his way off the bench up against the Barbarians. Also, this game taking place at Loftus, so we didn't see too many Bulls featuring in that last contest, but this one it would make perfect sense to absolutely stack the side with those Bulls. They haven't had too many possible minutes. Bongi Umbanambi in the number 2 jersey, like you said, he didn't play in that last game, so it makes sense that Rassie will be rotating the squad and potentially giving him a chance in this one. And number 3, this is where I've gone with another Bulls player, that being Wilco Louw. I do think he will heavily feature for the Springboks throughout this year, definitely with the absence of no Frans Malherbe. Wilco Louw, he's an absolute beast when it comes to the scrums. I also like the idea of keeping him and Jan-Hendrik Wessels together as a cohesive unit, and then perhaps on the other side, you could look at Oxenashare as well as Klabakanye as a possibility of a Springbok front row. But yeah, Wilco Louw, I would love to see him somewhere in this matchup. Moving on to the locking duo. For myself, number 4, I'm not too confident, but I've got Eben Etzebeth. Surely we're going to see the big man back in a Springboks kit. I know that he's been dealing with his fair share of injuries throughout the URC. Another option you could look at for that number 4 perhaps is Cobus Visa. At the end of the day, this is a home game for him if he was to get that opportunity, and perhaps Rassie would want to get those caps in early for those younger players. Ruan Nokia, who I have selected as the number 5, him and Etzebeth partnering last year, I thought was a pretty formidable duo. He has been playing a bit more of 7 throughout this season for the Bulls, but I do believe in the Springbok jersey, they'll keep him in the locking duo. So that's who I've gone with as my 4 and 5.
Yeah, it's kind of similar towards what we saw with like Franco Mostert, like actually in the early days of like the Lions, where he was playing more as a 7 in the position, but again transferring really more towards that kind of locking space. But yeah, similar to yourself, I have gone with the likes of Eben Etzebeth at number 4. I just think this is the time to kind of bring him in. I think again, if it's not this game, then it has to be definitely the next one. So he's going to be a part of one of these 2 games, I believe, against Italy. And then, yeah, for his partner in crime, I'm actually going with RJ Snyman. I just think you got to kind of have him available at some point, and he's been excellent, really, for Leinster this year. So I just think, yeah, why not just bring that kind of combination back again and, yeah, do it against the Italians.
And a combination that they haven't actually started too often, although we did see it for the first time, I believe
Yeah.
it was last year, that the two did get to start. Against Neyman, of course, offering you those offloads and just that elusive running could be quite the dangerous duo. If they do decide to go with it, we move on to the loose forward trio now for yourself, Tim. Last game, Sia Khaleesi was meant to be starting up against the Barbarians, did suffer that late neck injury, although from the sounds of it, he should be okay for this game. So is he who you've selected as your number 6?
Yeah. I think you just got to go with him. I mean, he wasn't available for the last one. Like you said, if he is available, then he's a guaranteed starter, in my opinion. Just you got to go with him. He is the captain. So, yeah, he's number 6, 100%. And, yeah, with the 7 and 8, this is where you can kind of be a bit more experimental, I guess, in the kind of the players you have. Because, again, we did kind of, we're talking beforehand that Peter Steff is probably going to be unavailable for this game. So he's just kind of not in the mind of kind of what we believe. So I've actually gone with Mark van Staden at the number 7 spot because, again, he can switch, to be fair, across all of the jerseys. To be fair, he's pretty versatile. And then this is actually where I've gone with Vincent Chukua, actually at number 8 spot, because he's actually been pretty good for the Sharks, throughout his time. But again, he's playing more as a 6 there, I know, for most of the part. But because you have Khaleesi, like, I just feel like if you wanted to, you could actually switch those two around, actually, and play Khaleesi at the 8, because that's what he has been playing for the Sharks for a bit, and then put Chukua at the number 6 spot. But just for this game, I've gone with him there, the number 8. And then, yeah, just I think it's kind of the loose forward trio that I've gone with.
It's experimental. It's different. But the thing is, Rassie Erasmus, as we've seen before, he does take a group of players and can create a little bit of magic, maybe with just one half reshuffle. But yeah, that would be pretty bold from Rassie if he does go with those 3. Although I don't think the 3 names are a mile off. It may just be where he decides to put them in terms of the jerseys for those 3. But for myself, I've got number 6, Sia Khaleesi. He too also returns into my Springboks side. Jesse Creel, I thought, did all right as the skipper in that game up against the Barbarians. He had an overall solid performance from that number 13 jersey. In the absence of Etzebeth and also Sia Khaleesi, it did seem like, in terms of those guys who were available, he was the best fit for that role, and also with the fact that he's played so many minutes throughout last year for the men in the green and the gold. For me, at number 7, this is where I've gone with Vincent Tuchuka. I do think after his 2 tries up against the Barbarians, with it being an unofficial debut, he thoroughly deserves a debut in this match against the Italians, scoring those 2 tries that do count as international friendly tries, but I'd love to see him get some.
A warm-up game.
It's a weird one, isn't it? Because it was played like a test match. But for Vincent Tuchuka, of course, those are very valuable minutes to now get to start your Springbok journey. You're wearing the kit, you're playing the national anthem, you're singing along, and now, you know, this is where you make your impact. This is where the world rankings can be affected. And this is where, to be honest, the career of these young guys can be affected when they get out there on the field. You've got to make sure you're in Rassie's good books because the squad is so large and they have so many men in that loose forward trio soon to return from their injury troubles. Number 8, a man who I believe will almost be ready to return. That is Jasper Wiese. I did think that he may have been playing in that Barbarians game, but perhaps that was just a little bit too soon to be bringing him back in. So Wiese here at number 8. Jean-Luc Dupré, he had an all right game. I would say a relatively quiet one in terms of the big, exciting moments, such as line breaks and that sort of thing. But he made his tackles and he did what he needed to throughout that matchup. But Jasper Wiese, I do think with the amount of injuries that they've got this year, in terms of Wano Augustus, no Cameron Honeycomb, no Elric Lowe, the list does go on. At the moment, no Peter Steff, although soon to return. I do think that Wiese will be a very welcome change in that number 8 jersey. But moving on to the 9-10 combination, I've gone experience in these 2 jerseys. Number 9, Faf de Klerk. Number 10, Andre Pollard. I do think that Rassie would like to get some minutes under both of those men's belt in the early stages of the year, definitely before the Rugby Championship. And I know that, like, don't get me wrong, these 2 matches up against Italy are important. Same with the one up against Georgia, but they by far are not the matches that the Springboks will be focused on for this year with the most interest. Of course, that Rugby Championship back-to-back, that end-of-year tour where they face up against some brilliant Northern Hemisphere teams. They will want to have their selections ready, and that split squad system that Rassie Erasmus brings, I'm not sure whether or not Faf de Klerk and Handré Pollard in that split squad will end up in the same starting lineup. But I do think in this type of game, structure will be important. They had pretty good structure up against the Barbarians, which is something not many sides can say, because as we've seen from Barbars games in the past, they normally just break out into absolute chaos. But Faf de Klerk, Handré Pollard, my 19 combo for this match.
Yeah, look, I agree with everything you said there. I mean, but I'm kind of just thinking ahead here because, with the Boks, of course, going down towards NZ to play both games there, in particular at Eden Park, do you think they'll go with that combination? Or do you think it's more for a change? They kind of, because we've seen that combination played a lot in NZ, but like when you have that game at Eden Park, like, do you really need that experience? Or do you go like, you know what, we're gonna break the kind of barrier that go to least and go with like, I don't know, like with other kind of younger guys?
I think that it all depends on Sasha Feinberg Ngumezulu's form. Because in that game up against the Barbarians, he looked very strong. And we also saw him have some great moments last year up against the All Blacks, up until, of course, the point where he was injured. Yeah. But he's one of those players that when he's playing well, he can play a 9 or a 10 out of 10 easily. But if he's under pressure and, he's low in confidence, it's not very difficult for him to have a 3 out of 10, and that's where you need that kind of security of a Handré Pollard. Of course, also heading to the Bulls next year, and I do think in that same regard, he will be such a key for them in terms of those close games, the important moments, being able to stay composed, and that's what he brings to the Springboks as well. Hugely experienced, seems to play well no matter where he goes in the world, whether that's Japan or whether that's England or back in South Africa. So I think he'll be somewhere, either close to this lineup, perhaps even off the bench, or perhaps next week we'll see Pollard back in action.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, so I guess in my case, I am going to go with Grant Williams at the number 9 spot. I just feel like he's, I want it kind of more of a youngster to kind of have an opportunity there with the number 9 spot. And then, I've also gone with then Handré Pollard at the number 10. I just feel like you said, Handré Pollard needs minutes early on, I think. And again, you can either do it within one of these tests within the first or second, but I just think he has to play some minutes, even if it's off the bench or starting. But in this case, I just want to have a start, just so then he has kind of that feeling of what it takes to kind of go into these games starting off. Because again, like you said, with the Rugby Championship games, you're going to have to kind of be in the swing of things right at the very start. So that's the reason why I've gone with him there, number 10. And with Grant Williams, I just think you just give him an opportunity, honestly, because there's so many number 9s. I mean, we did see Maury Vandenberg, who, to be fair, I think he played pretty decent actually against the Barbars, but it's one of those where it's more of a warm-up game, so I can't really judge him off that game really. It's like I would be able to judge like the Lions, I would say, off that Argentina game, because I thought that was a lot more competitive than this game. So it's there's kind of a difference in how I kind of judge these players, but yeah, look, I went with Grant Williams and Handré Pollard there as a 9-10 combination.
Of course, Pollard playing at Loftus, something we will see familiar for the later stages of the year for the URC, so maybe just getting a little bit of that swing of things for the altitude and whatnot. But moving on now to your centre pairing, Tim. I've gone a little bit more, I would say, risky in terms of who I've selected. The safe option is Damien de Allende, Jesse Creel. Both played very well up against the Barbarians, and it seemed to be, as the match went on, Damien de Allende found his rhythm a little bit more. He took that little bit longer than Jesse Creel did, and they've also, I think Rassie mentioned after that he felt like de Allende, as well as Kurt Liarense, were just a little bit light for minutes over the last couple of months. So does that impact who you've gone with in the centres, or you've got to change?
It's difficult, but I have actually gone with Damien de Allende just to start at the number 12. I just think you've got to. I think like it's one of those where it's similar towards like a lot of the players I've selected here. Like the first test, I think is very important, but maybe in the second test, that's where you can be a lot more experimental. Again, you are facing, I believe, Georgia in that third test as well, so you can also be a lot more experimental in that one if you want to as well. So, but I've gone with Damien de Allende at number 12. But number 13, this is where I've actually gone with even Hooker, actually. I think this is where he could play. I know there's obviously some other options you could go in the number 13 spot if you wanted to, but I think this is probably the perfect game, really, for Ethan Hooker. I mean, we haven't seen too much of him actually getting in terms of starting opportunities. So why not give him a chance against the Italians? Because, as we were discussing before, this isn't really like the full strength kind of Italian squad, and they're not going to have like their best centre combination in that for this game really. So I just think Ethan Hooker is, just give him a shot really. So yeah, I'd like to see that combination between Demi Dande and Hooker.
Yeah, when looking through at the players who are missing from the Italians, they have got 9 players who started up against Ireland in that last Italian match. The likes of Tommaso Allen, Paolo Garbisi, Juan Inesio Brex, Ange Capuzio, Martin Pagerello. Like, those names can make a difference for this Italian side. But in my midfield combo, Ethan Hooker is also my number 13. And then number 12, I have gone Andre Esterhuizen. So the Sharks duo in the middle of the field. The thing with Ethan Hooker is he's young. He has so much experience across multiple positions. In fact, I was looking at the split. 30% of his career has been played at inside centre, 21% at outside centre, 24% on the left wing, 24% on the right wing.
There you go.
There hasn't been a lot of decisiveness about Ethan Hooker's career so far, but perhaps Rassie, as soon as he puts him in a certain jersey, that's where he will stay. Yeah. And you just wonder whether or not it's going to be out on the wing, or perhaps there's an option at number 13. I know that they tried that Kane and Moody experiment for a little bit of time, and it wasn't the most successful at times. It went all right, though. Like, it wasn't the worst thing that happened for the Boks. So perhaps they look at Moody as a 13 chance. But for this game, I've gone Esterhuizen and Ethan Hooker. And I do think that is a very powerful duo to have in the middle of the field. But we move on now to the back three. This is where I've got another Sharks player out on the left. That is Makazole Mapimpi. Had a pretty solid season for the Sharks, and I do see them rotating those back three a little bit. Of course, they've got so many options with the size of the squad for the Boks. But Makazole Mapimpi, I've got him out on the left, out on the right. This is where I have got Kane and Moody in front of the home crowd, and then number 15, another home crowd boy. Well, I guess I should call him a man. He's got 98 caps. Willie Leroux getting close to that Centurion. And I do think if the long-term plan for Leroux is to get him to the 100 and then move on, seeing as they have got so many other young fullback options at the moment, whether that is Valimza, whether that is Apalele Fasi, who look great in that game up against the Barbarians. You've also got someone like a Kewan Horn. She just dropped something.
Yeah, it's all right. I didn't want to put you off. I just had my phone. I was like, oh.
You've got Kewan Horn as well as another guy who was taken out of that Springboks team when they did cut it down a little bit smaller. So Willie Leroux, I think he deserves his 100 caps, whether the people like him or not. Like, it seems to be a little bit 50-50, but he's got the experience partnering with Faf de Klerk and Andre Pollard. I feel like that's a pretty experienced backline, and probably makes up for the fact that I'm going with a young duo in the centres of Andre Esterhuizen and Ethan Hooker. It means that you've got that nice kind of balance across the team. But for yourself, Tim, have you gone with the same, or have you got some changes?
I've got some changes. Well, I mean, I think the only player I actually have that's the same as you was actually Kid Moody at the number 14 spot. I was considering Mapimpi, to be fair, at the number 11, because it is kind of suited towards him now that you're kind of talking about him. But I've actually gone with Edwil Vandenberger actually on the 11 side. Because, again, he's played there. He's actually had a decent, I'll say a decent season. I'm not going to say amazing. Because, again, I'd say before when he was up with the Lions, I thought he was actually really good, actually, with the Lions. He's had a good year, but it's more just, I just think this is a good opportunity, really, for him in the 11 jersey. But for the 15, this is actually where I've gone with Damien Williamson, actually, to kind of have a return into the Springbok lineup, because again, we haven't seen him for, I can't even remember the last time we saw him play for the Boks. It's been a long time. So it's one of those where I like to see him just get an opportunity, and why not just put him straight into that 15 spot. Again, I could go with Willie Leroux, but I just think it's one of those where I think it's more likely they put him off the bench than start. Yeah. But at the same time, it's like, look, if they started him, then I'm not going to be, I'm a big Willie Leroux fan, so I have no problem him starting. I just think it's good to kind of get Williamson more minutes in this game in particular. So that's the reason why I've started him at number 15.
Yeah, he has been extremely unlucky throughout the last couple of years. I remember he scored that try in the URC just after the Springbok squad was announced, and then, of course, had to be taken out due to injuring himself in the process of scoring. He most recently had that suspension in the game of the URC just before the playoff matches, which did mean, of course, that suspension was in play for the first game up against the Barbarians. I believe he'll be back now, though, and we'll be thoroughly looking forward to getting some minutes in the Springboks kit. But we move on now to the bench. For yourself, Tim, have you gone 6-2, 5-3, 7-1, 8-0?
8-0, yeah, it could be 8-0, but no, I've actually gone with 5-3. I think it'll be played safe against his Italian side. So for that case, I have gone with Van den Berger at the number 16 spot in terms of the kind of replacement hooker. I don't think, again, we were talking about the hooker options. There's not as many kind of available. I mean, you could go with like Malcolm Marks if you really wanted to, but it's more like I don't know. I would feel bad for the Italians really the way if we put Malcolm Marks off the bench. So I kind of just want to give Van den Berger really a shot here as the hooker there. And again, he played off the bench against the Barbars as well. So why not give him another opportunity? I then have gone with Jan Hendrik Wessels as the replacement loose head. So this is where I've kind of given him an opportunity there. And then alongside him, this is where I've gone with a Glow as the tight head coming off the bench. So similar to you, kind of what you did within your starting lineup, but just more, in my case, is really more for the bench. So yeah.
Alrighty, well, number 16, I have been ruthless, and I've gone with Malcolm Marks.
There you go.
I mean, that guy starting in the match up against the Barbarians, scoring the early rolling maul try. They probably didn't go to that maul as much as they could have throughout that game, and that is a danger for most sides. Like the Barbars did not have a small pack, but I guess the incohesion was probably the thing that really
stopped them
helped
though a few times.
That maul. They did. They actually they managed to defend in that 10 meters out from their line. They actually did pretty well. Although I think that was really just the last ditch, like balls to the wall, caution to the wind type of defense, where they were just hoping for the best case scenario. But certainly ill-disciplined at time, the Barbarians. In that game. Number 17, this is where I've gone with Bojan Fenta, who I believe is arriving to be with the squad about now. So he's going to take a little bit longer, so might as well chuck him straight in off the bench, a little bit similar to what we've seen for a few of the other players. Number 18, I've gone with the experience off the bench of Vincent Koch. I do think that Thomas du Toit could feature, though, in this game somewhere across the starting lineup or reserves, but in this case, I've gone with Fenta and Koch. Just a little bit of a inexperienced loose head with a very experienced tight head, I think could be quite a handy combo. Definitely with Malcolm Marks also there. So a little bit similar to what they did for Clubber Kanye in the first match.
Yeah, I see that.
That did just take place. But moving on now to the rest of the forwards, I too have also got the 5-3 split. I'd guess Snyman as my number 19, just because, of course, we know how much they love bringing that man off the bench. And number 20, Mr. Super Sub himself, Quagga Smith. I actually think, I'm going to say it once again, just like we said last year, I think Quagga Smith is better off the bench than he is in the starting side. I think that the way that man comes off the reserves bench and just changes the game, no matter who it's up against, whether it's a top-class opposition or a slightly underwhelming opposition, like, he's going to do phenomenal things. And I don't think he minds making his way off the bench because he can just empty the gas tank from pretty much 30 minutes remaining onwards and just sweep everyone off their feet. So I do think that Snyman and Smith as your 19 and 20 is certainly a formidable duo off the bench for the Boks.
Yeah, look, I couldn't agree more with you. I mean, like, I have gone with Lord Diego as my kind of replacement lock instead of Snyman, because of course I've started him in this case. But I have also gone with Quagga Smith at the number 20 spot. And I just think you got to like you said, he's arguably the best bench player in the world. I mean, that's kind of what he's known for, because that's what he was able to do within the Rugby World Cup, and he just keeps doing it. That's the thing. Like, and players know this. Like, they know that Quagga Smith is coming off that bench and he's going to impact that game. So try to, in a way, they're trying to make sure that they're in the lead before he comes on, because you don't want to really make it so like, oh, he's just there to kind of like just hurt you even more. So yeah, look, Quagga Smith, man, just an unbelievable player, and yeah, he will definitely is more likely to come off the bench than and start in the case. But I mean, and like you said, I think he's happy to do that. He's actually happy to do that. So yeah, more the merrier, really. But yeah, I guess in terms of my backs then, to kind of finish it off with the scrum half, then I have him with Flavier again. Like, it was one of those where I could have gone with other players, but I just think this is where you want to give a bit of experience here and just kind of a bit more minutes. And I just think it's maybe more likely that he'll come off the bench than start. But I guess, I mean, you have started him, so I guess it could go either way, to be fair. In 22, this is where I have gone with Andre Eisen. I just think, like you said beforehand, through the Barbars, I mean, he wasn't really playing as a center, to be fair, at times. He kind of had to change positions. But look, if he can kind of have a bit more minutes in this game against the Italians, that would be good, because he is just a he is so good actually when he has the ball in his hand and kind of just finds that space and gaps. So yeah, kind of wanted to have him a bit more of an opportunity. And then of course, final position, it just has to go to Willie LaRue. I mean, you just got to go with him. Give him kind of the cap really, to say the least. I mean, everything is you just got to. I mean, he's playing at the ball as well. Like it's just set. I mean, I can't see a way in how. Imagine Rousey just only gives him one cap out of the two. Like, yeah, sorry, man, you're gonna have to end on 99. It's like what? It's like that's just not right. So, but you never know. Maybe like what happens is that he doesn't play this game actually, and then he only plays in the second game against the Italians and then the Georgia game. So maybe that's what happens. But look, in this case, I have gone with Willie LaRue as my final player.
Well, it's that split squad system, isn't it, that always is tricky to establish early. Once we see a few games, you start to get the hang of the pattern, but of course that's when Rassie Erasmus likes to change it, just to throw everyone off again. For myself, I have got number 21, Grant Williams, off the bench. I do believe he will be match fit. He's had quite a few neck troubles, I believe, so hopefully will be much better and will be able to play for the Springboks in July. Damien Valimza as my number 22. Now that's actually as 10 and 15 cover for myself, just because, of course, we know that he can play fly half, although he hasn't done it a huge amount for the Stormers due to them having Marnie Libok, as well as Sasha Feinberg and Ngume Zulu. And to be fair, Valimza could also slot in at 12. So quite a versatile player to have off the bench for the Boks. And then that meant that I could go with number 23, Edwell van der Merwe, who, I'll be honest, I think is going to be one of the unluckier players throughout 2025 in terms of minutes. When you look at the guys that are available. Initially, I did have Kurtley Ardense there because, like I mentioned, Rassie said maybe Ardense didn't get as much game time throughout the building into this series that he would have liked him to see. So, yeah, I've gotten Edwell at number 23, but could easily see, honestly, about 3, 4, even 5 guys going into that number 23 jersey instead. But with that being said, those are our predictions for Rassie Erasmus's lineup. Last week, it was on the Tuesday around midday that we did see the side announced. I'd assume it will be similar this week, although maybe they'll leave it a bit later due to that Khaleesi neck injury. Maybe just seeing whether or not he'll be able to play in the game. But nonetheless, we do thank you all very much for being here. Of course, do let us know what you think Rassie will be selecting for the first matchup against the Italians. But Tim, this is the last prediction for quite some time.
Indeed.
We've done, I want to say, over 50 of them on the channel, and they have been a blast.
We've done so many. I can't think. I want to try to remember actually what was the most watched one from you guys in terms of what we did in our predictions. Because I'd like to think it's probably during the Rugby World Cup, but
it's got to be, doesn't it?
But you never know. It could be one of the NZSA games, maybe actually for the Rugby Championship. But yeah, no, it's been fun, guys. It's been really fun kind of doing these prediction videos. Because again, at the end of the day, I think if there was a pie chart that someone could make up of, if they would go all through the predictions of what we've done, it's probably what we probably got maybe
2% right.
2% right. Yeah, exactly. Like less than 5%, I think, in terms of our predictions. So it's just more of a fun kind of video for you guys. Kind of just give you our opinions and kind of what we believe Rassie or what other coaches may go with as well. But yeah, no, it's been good. So yeah, really enjoyed coming on the channel, guys. And yeah, like I said, we'll see what happens, of course, for the future. In terms, you never know. Maybe down the line we may I don't know, we may restart the podcast, or we may come up with another name for a new podcast. You never know. So we'll see what happens down the line, because I've always said that I'm closing the door towards Rugbyitch, but I'm not closing it fully. I think there's maybe potential in the future. But yeah, thanks for having me on, and yeah, it's been good.
It's been a pleasure. We've done, like we mentioned, even outside of the predictions, we've done so many other videos across the two channels. And yeah, wishing you success in terms of your future endeavours, as they say. That's normally when someone's been fired, but we haven't fired you. You're welcome back. But of course,
contract terminated. Yeah, sorry, God, you got to leave. You got to leave right now.
We had to get rid of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just too much controversy. No one knows what that accent is. We can't have that.
No. All you have to know is that the Blues are the best team in the world, guys, as well as the Boks. That's all you have to know. Those are the two best teams in club and world rugby. That's all you have to know.
There we go. Leaving it on a controversial note, as always. But nonetheless, do thank you all very much for tuning in. Of course, do let me know if you want me to continue doing these predictions by myself, or whether you do want to see another guest. And if so, who do you want to see sitting alongside me? We'll get to see some, I'm sure, random answers in there. Probably a few unserious ones as well, but that will be half the fun. But thank you all very much for tuning in. If you did enjoy, Be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Be sure to check out Tim's channel anyway for when he does eventually upload again. And we will see you all for the next one.